Nathan Carter tried not to gawk as the alien diplomat descended from her ship. Ambassador Zara Vex of the Andromeda Federation stood nearly 7 feet tall, her slender body covered in iridescent blue scales that shimmered under the Washington, D.C. sunlight. Her four-fingered hands moved with elegant precision as she greeted Earth's welcoming committee. Nathan hadn't planned to be here. As a curator at the National Museum of Cultural History, he'd only received an invitation to the diplomatic reception by chance when a senior colleague fell ill. Now he stood among Earth's elite, watching humanity's newest galactic ally make her entrance. "Quite a sight, isn't she?" whispered Laura, the museum director. "They say Andromedans can process information 3 times faster than humans." Nathan nodded politely, but found himself less interested in the alien's mental capabilities than in the grace with which she moved through the crowd. There was something almost musical about her gestures. The reception hall buzzed with excitement. Earth had only officially joined the Galactic Alliance 2 months ago, making them the newest member of an interstellar community that spanned 3 galaxies. Ambassador Vex was the first high-ranking diplomat to visit since the signing ceremony. Nathan sipped his champagne and observed from a distance. His specialty in ancient Earth cultures hardly seemed relevant to interstellar diplomacy. He was perfectly content to remain a wallflower at this gathering. Fate had other plans. "You appear fascinated by that pottery display," came a melodic voice beside him. "Most humans barely notice it." Nathan turned to find Ambassador Vex standing next to him, her large amber eyes studying his face. "Ah, yes. It's Ming Dynasty, 15th century," he stammered. "I'm surprised you recognize my interest." "Your eyes lingered 4.7 seconds longer than the average human attention span," she replied. "I notice patterns." Nathan smiled. "Occupational hazard. I'm a curator. I preserve and study cultural artifacts." "A keeper of history," Zara said, her head tilting slightly. "My people have a similar role called memory guardians. They preserve not objects, but experiences." "How do they do that?" "Through a process your language might call psychic imprinting. They can store and share sensory memories across generations." For the next hour, Nathan forgot he was speaking to an alien diplomat. They moved from discussing pottery to debating the importance of physical artifacts versus experience memories. Zara challenged his assumptions about preservation, while he helped her understand why humans formed such emotional attachments to objects. "Your perspective is refreshing," Zara said eventually. "Most diplomatic conversations feel rehearsed." "That's because I'm not a diplomat," Nathan admitted. "I'm just a museum curator who got lucky with an invitation." "Lucky indeed," said a voice behind them. Secretary of State Olivia Wilson approached with a smile. "I see you've monopolized our guest of honor, Mr. Carter." Nathan flushed. "My apologies, Madam Secretary. We were discussing cultural preservation methods." "No apology needed," Zara interjected. "This has been the most informative conversation of my visit." Later, as Nathan prepared to leave, an aide approached him with a small metallic card. "From Ambassador Vex," the aide explained. The card shimmered with text that translated itself before his eyes. "The Andromedan Embassy requests the expertise of Nathan Carter for cultural consultation during Ambassador Vex's extended Earth mission." Nathan read it twice, his heart suddenly racing. Behind him, across the room, he caught Zara watching him. She gave a small nod, her scales shifting color slightly, from blue to a purplish hue. Neither of them realized that this moment, this simple exchange of glances across a crowded diplomatic reception, would soon become the opening chapter of a story that would captivate billions across the stars. 3 weeks into his role as cultural liaison to Ambassador Zara Vex, Nathan Carter was still adjusting to his new reality. Today, they stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon as the setting sun painted the rocks in shades of orange and red. "The way light interacts with your atmosphere creates colors we don't have on my world," Zara said, her amber eyes wide with wonder. "Our sunsets are primarily in the ultraviolet spectrum." Nathan smiled. "I wish I could see that." "Perhaps someday you will," she replied, her scales shifting to a warm copper tone that mimicked the canyon walls. Their days had fallen into a pleasant pattern. Mornings were devoted to official diplomatic meetings where Nathan provided context on human customs and social norms. Afternoons and evenings belonged to what Zara called experiential learning, visits to museums, historical sites, and natural wonders. Yesterday had been the Lincoln Memorial. Tomorrow would be the Smithsonian. But today was just for the canyon. Zara had requested something natural after weeks of human architecture. You know, Nathan said as they walked along the rim trail, when I accepted this position, I expected more formal briefings and less sightseeing. My government believes understanding comes through experience, not data transfer, Zara explained. I could read files about your Grand Canyon, but standing here tells me more about what humans value. A small group of tourists passed by, trying not to stare at the tall blue alien. One child waved shyly, and Zara waved back with her four-fingered hand. People are getting more used to seeing you, Nathan observed. Yes, though I still detect elevated heart rates when they first notice me. She paused, then added, yours no longer changes, I've noted. Nathan felt his cheeks warm. I guess I've gotten comfortable. Later, they sat at a small cafe near their hotel. Nathan had introduced Zara to ice cream, which her species could safely consume despite biological differences. She had developed a particular fondness for mint chocolate chip. This combination of temperature sensation and flavor complexity is fascinating, she said, savoring another spoonful. We have nothing similar. What foods do you miss from home? Nathan asked. Zara considered this. There's a fruit that changes flavor based on the emotional state of the person eating it. I miss that unpredictability. That sounds amazing. And a little scary. Much like cross-cultural exchange, she replied with what Nathan had come to recognize as her version of a smile. A subtle rippling of scales around her face. As night fell, Nathan played music from his phone. A playlist he carefully curated to introduce Zara to Earth's musical diversity. Tonight was classical music. Bach's cello suite No. 1 filled the space between them as they watched stars appear above the canyon. The mathematics in this music align with patterns we use in our communication harmonics, Zara said quietly. It feels familiar in an unexpected way. Nathan noticed she was sitting closer than diplomatic protocol would typically allow. Neither of them moved away. Nathan, she said after a long silence, on my world, we believe understanding between different species is the highest form of knowledge. That sounds like a good philosophy. It is, but my people rarely speak of what happens when understanding deepens into something more personal. Their eyes met. Nathan felt something shift between them, subtle as a change in barometric pressure before a storm. Does that happen often? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. No, Zara replied. In the 7,000 years of recorded galactic diplomacy, it has happened exactly 17 times. She extended her hand, palm up, in the space between them, a gesture Nathan had never seen her make before. Slowly, understanding its significance without being told, he placed his palm against hers. Neither of them noticed the tourist who captured the moment on his phone from a discreet distance, nor could they have predicted how quickly that image would travel across both Earth and the stars beyond. The image hit the internet at 3:17 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. By breakfast, Alien Ambassador holds hands with Earthman had been shared 17 million times. By lunch, the Galactic Network had picked up the story, transmitting it across 12 star systems. Nathan's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. He finally turned it off after the 200th call from reporters. This is bad, he said, pacing the secure room inside the Andromedan embassy. Really bad. Zara stood perfectly still, a common Andromedan response to stress. Her scales had dulled to a flat gray. The Security Council has requested an emergency meeting, she said. My government is concerned. Concerned. Nathan ran his hands through his hair. That's diplomatic understatement, right? A knock at the door interrupted them. Ryan Powell, Earth's liaison to the Galactic Alliance, entered with a grim expression. "The President asked me to speak with you both," he said without preamble. "This situation is unprecedented." Nathan sank into a chair. It was just one moment. One private moment. Ryan placed a tablet on the table, displaying the viral image. There stood Nathan and Zara at the Grand Canyon overlook, their hands joined, her scales glowing the deep rose color that human eyes had never seen before. The sunset behind them created a perfect silhouette. The photographer sold it to 50 news outlets before posting it publicly, Ryan explained. He's already given 3 interviews describing what he calls true love across the stars. Zara's inner eyelids blinked rapidly, her species equivalent of a sigh. "The Andromeda Council wants me to return home immediately for consultation," she said. "They believe I've compromised my diplomatic neutrality." Ryan nodded. "The Galactic Alliance has similar concerns. There are protocols about representatives becoming emotionally entangled with species they're assigned to." "Emotionally entangled," Nathan repeated. "You make it sound like we committed a crime." "Not a crime," Ryan clarified, "but potentially a conflict of interest. Ambassador Vex was sent to evaluate Earth's readiness for deeper Alliance participation. Her reports need to be impartial." Outside the embassy, camera crews had gathered. Social media was exploding with hashtags. #StarsCrossed and #CosmicLove were trending globally. Nathan's museum colleagues had been bombarded with questions. Celebrity relationship experts were analyzing the hand-holding technique. 3 movie studios had already announced plans for films inspired by the true story. "I need to address my government," Zara said finally. "They're demanding an explanation." "And say what?" Nathan asked. "The truth," she replied. "That I found our cultural exchange enlightening and that my diplomatic judgment remained sound." "And what about us?" Nathan's voice grew quiet. Before Zara could answer, Ryan's tablet chimed with an urgent message. His eyes widened as he read it. "The Andromeda Council has formally requested Ambassador Vex return to her homeworld within 24 hours. They're sending a transport ship." Nathan felt his stomach drop. "For how long?" "Unspecified," Ryan replied. "And there's more. The museum board has placed you on administrative leave pending review." "Nathan." Zara's scales flickered briefly with a pattern Nathan had never seen. Something like anger mixed with determination. "Earth customs differ from ours," she said firmly. "But in both our cultures, isn't it true that people should have the freedom to form their own connections?" Ryan looked uncomfortable. "In theory, yes. In diplomatic practice. Then I will explain to my government that this connection enhances my understanding rather than compromises it," Zara said. "And I will return to Earth afterward." Nathan stood up. "They might not let you come back." Zara turned to him, her scales shifting to a deep blue. "Then perhaps we will need to demonstrate that what exists between us serves both our worlds rather than divides them." As the sun set on their first day as an interstellar scandal, neither could imagine how their personal moment would soon reshape the politics of 17 planets, or that billions of beings across the galaxy were already taking sides in their story. Nathan stared at the holographic display in his apartment, watching the Andromeda Council proceedings with a sense of helpless frustration. The translation algorithm struggled with some of the more nuanced expressions, but the general tone was clear enough. Zara stood alone before 18 senior council members, her scales maintaining a neutral blue despite what must have been enormous pressure. "Ambassador Vex," said Council Elder Mori, whose elaborate neck frills marked her high status, "explain how this human relationship advances our diplomatic mission." Zara's voice remained steady. "Honorable Council, my connection with Nathan Carter has provided unprecedented insights into human emotional processing. These insights are valuable for our long-term alliance planning. Yet you failed to report this connection in your official communications," another council member noted. "I was still analyzing its diplomatic relevance," Zara replied. Nathan sighed and muted the transmission temporarily. 2 weeks had passed since Zora's recall to her home planet. 2 weeks of reporters camping outside his building. 2 weeks of both praise and condemnation from strangers across Earth. His phone buzzed. It was Lily, his sister. "You okay?" Her message read, "Just saw you're trending again. Something about human-alien offspring possibilities. People are weird." He ignored it. The speculation about their relationship had grown increasingly invasive. Scientists were publishing theoretical papers about cross-species compatibility. Religious leaders were debating the spiritual implications. Political analysts questioned whether Nathan might have access to classified information through Zora. The truth was much simpler and far more ordinary. He missed her. Nathan unmuted the transmission. A younger council member was speaking now. "Perhaps we should consider the diplomatic advantages," she suggested. "This relationship has generated unprecedented interest in Andromedan culture among humans. Their media outlets request information about our customs daily. Interest is not respect," Elder Mori countered. "And fascination is not alliance." With respect, Zara interjected. "Human history shows that personal connections often precede meaningful cultural exchange. Their most successful diplomatic initiatives began with individual relationships." The debate continued for hours. Nathan watched it all, wishing he could somehow participate rather than just observe from 2.6 million light-years away, though the quantum relay transmission was instantaneous. His doorbell rang. Outside stood Ryan Powell and a woman Nathan didn't recognize. "This is Dr. Olivia Jensen from the Interstellar Relations Committee," Ryan explained once they were inside. "We have a proposal." Dr. Jensen placed a small device on Nathan's coffee table. It projected data charts showing opinion trends across multiple planets. "Support for your relationship has been growing," she explained, "particularly among younger demographics and progressive political groups. Several key worlds see potential benefits in closer human-Andromedan relations." Nathan frowned. "So my personal life is now a political bargaining chip." "More like an unexpected opportunity," Dr. Jensen corrected. "We'd like you to make a statement. Something personal, authentic, explaining what you've learned from Ambassador Vex and how it's enriched your understanding of galactic citizenship. You want me to use our relationship as propaganda." Ryan shook his head. "We want you to show that cross-species understanding is possible and valuable. The Andromedans respect truth and authenticity above all else." Nathan considered this while glancing back at the hologram. The council was calling for a recess. "I'll do it," he said finally. "But I speak from the heart, not from a script." Within hours, Nathan recorded his message. He spoke simply about Zora's intelligence, her curiosity, her unique perspective. He described how she helped him see Earth and humanity through new eyes. He explained how their differences created not obstacles but opportunities for growth. "I'm just a museum curator who fell for someone from another galaxy," he concluded. "But maybe that's exactly what both our worlds need right now, proof that connection is possible across any distance." The recording spread across Earth's networks and beyond. 3 days later, when the Andromedan Council reconvened, 17 citizen delegations from across their territory arrived to support Zora's return to Earth. The scales of politics had begun to tip. The diplomatic shuttle broke through Earth's cloud cover on a bright Tuesday morning. Nathan stood on the designated landing pad at the Andromedan embassy, trying to keep his breathing steady. 47 days had passed since Zora's recall. A small crowd had gathered behind the security barriers, a mix of supporters, protesters, and media. The story had only grown during Zora's absence. Fan clubs had formed. Conspiracy theories flourished. Someone had even written a song that reached number 3 on the global charts. The shuttle's doors opened. Zora emerged, her scales shimmering with a color Nathan had never seen before, something between purple and gold. Behind her came 3 Andromedan officials. Protocol dictated a formal greeting. Nathan had rehearsed the proper diplomatic phrases, but when Zora reached the bottom of the ramp, all ceremony dissolved. They moved toward each other and clasped hands in the human way. Cameras whirred. The crowd cheered and gasped. "I've missed Earth's oxygen concentration," Zara said, which Nathan recognized as her species' way of expressing personal feelings in public. "The museum was too quiet without you asking questions about every exhibit," he replied. Inside the embassy's private conference room, the real negotiation began. The 3 Andromedan officials, a cultural attaché, a diplomatic overseer, and a biological specialist, laid out the council's conditions. Ambassador Vex may continue her Earth assignment, the overseer explained, with certain stipulations. Nathan listened as they outlined the terms. Zara and Nathan's relationship would be permitted but documented as a cultural integration study. Their interactions would be recorded for scientific and diplomatic review. "You want to study us?" Nathan asked. "We wish to understand," the cultural attaché clarified. "No Andromedan has formed such a connection with a human before. The potential benefits for both our species are significant." Zara's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. "My government believes our relationship might serve as a template for future cross-species interactions." "So we're guinea pigs," Nathan said. "Test subjects," the biological specialist corrected, missing the idiom. They negotiated for hours. Nathan insisted on privacy protections. Zara requested control over what data could be shared publicly. By evening, they reached an agreement both could live with. That night, sitting in Nathan's apartment for the first time since her return, Zara showed him recordings of the council debates she participated in. 17 members voted for my return," she explained. "Only 4 against. What changed their minds?" "Your message spread widely on our networks. It was unexpected. Andromedans value rational arguments, but your emotional honesty resonated in ways our analysts hadn't predicted." Nathan smiled. "So being hopelessly human actually helped?" "Precisely." Her scales rippled with amusement. "Also, public opinion across multiple worlds favored us. Even species with historical tensions with both humans and Andromedans expressed support." The next morning, they began their documented journey. Their first official cultural integration activity was grocery shopping. Zara wanted to understand daily human routines. The small market near Nathan's apartment buzzed with whispers as they navigated the aisles. Zara examined fruit with intense curiosity, her scanner analyzing nutritional content. "This is compatible with my digestion," she announced, holding up an avocado. An elderly woman approached them cautiously. "Excuse me," she said to Zara. "My grandson is autistic. He struggles to understand facial expressions like I do. Seeing how you two communicate despite your differences, it's given him hope." Zara's scales shifted to a warm amber. Communication barriers can be overcome with patience and creativity. That evening, their shopping trip, recorded as agreed, was transmitted to the Andromedan Council and the Galactic Alliance. By morning, it had been viewed by over 2 billion beings across 17 star systems. What had begun as a diplomatic incident was transforming into something unexpected. A masterclass in cross-cultural understanding that captivated the galaxy, and neither Nathan nor Zara had any idea how much further their story would reach. The Grand Canyon glowed orange in the sunset, almost exactly 1 Earth year since the day Nathan and Zara had first held hands at this same spot. They stood at the railing, tourists giving them a respectful distance, something that rarely happened anymore. 365 Earth days, Zara noted. Her scales shimmered with a blend of colors Nathan had learned to recognize as nervousness. "My homeworld completes its orbit in 922 days. So we're not even at your half anniversary," Nathan smiled. Their documented cultural integration had evolved beyond anyone's expectations. Their weekly videos about navigating cross-species challenges had become required viewing in diplomatic academies across the Galactic Alliance. Medical researchers studied how they overcame biological differences, like Zara's need for higher oxygen levels, or Nathan's inability to see ultraviolet light signals. What had begun as surveillance had become inspiration. I wanted to bring you here for a reason, Nathan said. His heart pounded so loudly he wondered if Zara could hear it with her sensitive auditory receptors. You're displaying physical signs of stress, she observed, her head tilting. Elevated heart rate, increased perspiration. That's because I'm nervous, he admitted. Why? We've visited this location 7 times now. Nathan took a deep breath. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. On Earth, there's a tradition. He began, then paused. Actually, I've practiced this speech 50 times, and it never sounds right. Nathan sank to one knee. Nearby tourists gasped, recognizing the gesture even if Zara didn't. Zara Vex, will you marry me? Zara's scales flashed through a rainbow of colors before settling on a deep rose that seemed to glow from within. This is the human pair bonding ritual, she said softly. I studied it, but never expected. Is that a yes? Nathan asked. There are 17 treaties governing interspecies legal unions, she replied, and at least 4 biological compatibility assessments we shouldered. Zara. Nathan interrupted gently. Just tell me how you feel, not what the protocols say. Her scales rippled in a pattern he'd only seen twice before, the Andromedan expression of profound joy. Yes, she said. I will marry you according to the customs of both our worlds. He slipped the ring onto her finger, custom made to fit her 4-fingered hand. The stone wasn't a diamond but a rare crystal from her homeworld that changed color with the wearer's emotional state. Nathan had barely stood up when the air filled with cheers. The respectful distance collapsed as people rushed forward, hands extended with congratulations. Someone popped a champagne bottle. Strangers hugged them. Within minutes, the news broke globally. Within hours, it reached the furthest planets of the Alliance. The following morning, their communication channels overloaded. 17 planetary governments sent official congratulations. The Andromedan Council called an emergency session. Earth's United Nations drafted a special resolution on interspecies marriage rights. In Nathan's apartment, they sat surrounded by message holograms, slightly overwhelmed. My species doesn't typically have marriage ceremonies, Zara noted. We have partnership contracts signed privately. We could do that instead, Nathan offered. No, her scales shifted to a determined blue. If our union matters to so many, perhaps the ceremony should reflect that significance. By evening, the offers began arriving. 12 planets volunteered to host the wedding. The most prestigious designers in 3 galaxies requested the honor of creating their attire. Religious leaders from 9 different faiths offered to perform or bless the ceremony. This is getting out of hand, Nathan said, looking at the growing list of diplomatic considerations. Zara's scales rippled with unexpected amusement. Remember when we worried about being diplomatic guinea pigs? Now we're creating an interstellar wedding protocol from scratch. Just then, a message arrived from Elder Mori of the Andromedan Council, the most skeptical voice during Zara's recall hearing. The union you propose has no precedent, her message read. But perhaps that is precisely why it matters. The Council has voted unanimously to recognize your marriage as diplomatically significant. I offer my personal blessing. Nathan squeezed Zara's hand, ready to make history. Her scales glowed in that special rose color that she displayed only for him. With you. Always. The Earth-Moon L5 habitat had never hosted such a diverse gathering. 217 diplomatic delegations orbited in ceremonial formation around the neutral space station. Representatives from species that had been enemies for generations stood side by side, temporarily united by something larger than ancient conflicts. Nathan adjusted his ceremonial attire, a perfect blend of Earth formal wear and Andromedan dignity symbols. The fabric contained microscopic technology that shifted colors to complement Zara's scale patterns. Nervous? Asked Alex, Nathan's best friend who stood beside him as best man. Terrified, Nathan admitted. 3 billion beings are watching across the galaxy. The habitat's central dome had been transformed into a garden with plants from 27 worlds, each species carefully selected for compatibility and symbolic meaning. At the center stood an arch made of materials from both Earth and Andromeda, wood and crystal intertwined. The music began, a composition created by a joint Earth-Andromedan cultural committee. It blended human strings with the resonant tones of Andromedan sound sculptures. And then Zura appeared. Her ceremonial covering flowed around her like liquid starlight, responding to her emotions with subtle color shifts. She had chosen to incorporate the Earth tradition of a procession, walking slowly toward Nathan as the assembled dignitaries watched in respectful silence. Elder Mori stood waiting beneath the arch. Once Zora's fiercest critic, she had requested the honor of officiating the ceremony. "We gather in this space between worlds," Mori began, her translator conveying her words into 29 languages simultaneously, "to witness a union that transcends more than distance." Nathan and Zara faced each other. They had decided to blend traditions, writing vows that honored both cultures. "Nathan Carter," Zara spoke first, her scales glowing with that special rose color only he could fully appreciate. "I commit to building understanding between us when differences arise. I promise to see your world through your eyes, to share my perspective honestly, and to create something new together that neither of our species could imagine alone." Nathan's voice wavered slightly as he responded. "Zara Vex, I promise to cross the distances between our worlds, both physical and cultural, with patience and wonder. I commit to standing beside you as we build bridges for others to follow. Whatever challenges come, we will face them together, neither fully human nor Andromedan, but something wonderfully new." Elder Mori presented them with two objects, a piece of earth olivine and a crystal from Andromeda's shores. "In the tradition of both worlds, exchange these tokens that will always connect you to your origins." They placed the stones in each other's palms, then clasped their hands together. "What begins here is more than partnership," Mori announced. "It is possibility." When Nathan and Zara shared their first public kiss, a human custom Zara had embraced enthusiastically, the entire habitat erupted in a celebration that transcended species boundaries. 1 year later, Nathan and Zara sat in their home, a specially designed living space in the diplomatic quarter that accommodated both their biological needs. On their desk lay the first printed copy of their book, Bridging Stars, a practical guide to interspecies relationships. "Page 93 needs revision," Zara noted, her scales shifting to thoughtful blue. "The section on communication barriers doesn't adequately address pheromone-based languages." Nathan laughed. Always the perfectionist. Their communication panel chimed with an incoming message. The Galactic Alliance Council appeared on screen. Ambassador Carter Vex, the council head, addressed them jointly, using their newly combined surname. "We are pleased to inform you that the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Program has been officially approved. Your proposal will be implemented across all member worlds." After the call ended, Nathan and Zara stood by their viewport, looking out at the stars. "Did you ever imagine," Nathan asked, "that one viral photo would lead to all this?" Zara's scales shimmered with contentment. The probability was approximately 1 in 7 billion. "So you're saying there was a chance?" Nathan teased. Her scales rippled with laughter, a pattern she had developed only after living among humans. "There's always a chance when different worlds meet with open hearts," she said, taking his hand in hers. "That's the lesson we've taught the galaxy." Outside their window, ships from 17 worlds prepared for the inaugural journey of the first joint human-Andromedan exploration mission. Each vessel carrying pairs of diplomats who had been inspired by a love story that had crossed the stars. 5 years had passed since the wedding that united two galaxies. The Carter Vex residence had expanded to include a special wing designed for guests from across the Alliance. Today, it hosted 12 young diplomats, 6 humans, and 6 Andromedans, all part of the exchange program that Nathan and Zora had pioneered. "Remember," Nathan told the gathered students, "cross-species communication isn't just about translation. It's about understanding context." Zora nodded, her scales shifting to a teaching blue pattern that the Andromedan students recognized as a sign of important knowledge being shared. Humans may say words that mean one thing literally but communicate something entirely different. Like when I say I'm fine but my scales show distress, added Talia, one of the Andromedan students who had adapted human speech patterns with remarkable ease. Exactly, Nathan smiled. And humans need to learn that Andromedan color changes aren't just emotional reactions, but part of their communication system. These monthly workshops had become a cornerstone of the interspecies diplomatic corps. What began as Nathan and Zara's personal journey had evolved into an entire academic discipline. Universities on 17 worlds now offered degrees in cross-species relations, with the Carter-Vex methodology as the foundation. After the students departed, Nathan found Zora in their garden terrace, her scales absorbing the afternoon sunlight. "The Regelian ambassador confirmed for next week's summit," he said, sitting beside her. "That makes 22 species attending." Zora's scales rippled with satisfaction. More than the Alliance founding conference. The upcoming Galactic Cultural Preservation Summit had been their joint project for nearly 2 years, combining Nathan's expertise in cultural artifacts with Zora's diplomatic connections. Representatives from across known space would gather to establish the first interspecies heritage protection protocols. "Remember when we met?" Nathan asked. "I was just explaining Ming Dynasty pottery. And I was calculating how long your eyes lingered on the display," Zora replied, her scales tinting with fond remembrance. Their quiet moment was interrupted by a chime from their communication panel. A message from the Galactic Alliance Council appeared, marked urgent. Nathan read it first, his eyes widening. "They've made first contact with a previously unknown civilization in the Carina Nebula, a species that communicates primarily through art." Zora moved closer, her scales shifting to excited yellow. "They're requesting us specifically. As lead contact specialists," Nathan confirmed. "They believe our experience bridging human and Andromedan communication styles makes us uniquely qualified." For a moment, they sat in stunned silence. First contact was the highest honor in Alliance diplomacy, and the greatest responsibility. "We would need to leave within the week," Zora noted, her analytical mind already calculating preparations. "What do you think?" Nathan asked. Zora's scales cycled through multiple patterns as she processed the implications. "When we held hands at the Grand Canyon, did you ever imagine we would someday represent not just our species, but the entire Alliance?" Nathan shook his head. "I was just hoping you wouldn't get reassigned to another planet." Their communication panel chimed again with incoming messages. Friends, colleagues, and officials reacting to the news that had now been released publicly. The Carter-Vex name was trending across 17 star systems once more. As the sun set over their home, they stood together watching the first stars appear. "A new civilization," Nathan said softly. "New art forms, new perspectives, new possibilities. New bridges to build," Zora added, her scales glowing with that special rose color reserved only for their most meaningful moments. They had once been a viral sensation, an unlikely pair that captured the galaxy's imagination. Now they were something far more important, proof that understanding could cross any boundary. Together, they composed their response to the Council. "We accept this honor and responsibility, in service to all worlds, known and yet to be discovered." The message sent, disappearing into the quantum network that connected the stars. Stars that seemed suddenly closer, more accessible, and filled with new promise.